Welcome into the roundtable. I'm Brad Wakai. That is Tyson Gentry. We are coming at you, breaking down the little Monday night football game we just saw between the Chargers and the Broncos, giving you our reaction there, analyzing a little bit about the Chargers and Broncos, and getting into a little fun segment that we just came up with, things we think, as we're at our about three-quarter mark here through the season, finishing up week 6, just analyzing different teams, what we think about the broad picture overall. But let's just get right into it, Tyson, with our Monday Night Football reaction. Another stinker. I mean, 1916, Chargers survive in overtime. Another overtime game for the Broncos.
I mean, they've been on primetime 4 times out of 6 weeks, and they've looked like shit 4 times. And the other 2 times they look like shit, people aren't watching because it's not on primetime, so it's easy to be like, "Oh, these guys." But, I mean, in reality, these were 2 teams preseason that were the betting market's favorites to they were both gonna win 10 games, like, that was just a lock, preseason. They were both gonna be in the playoffs. They both look bad, and Nathaniel Hackett, I've not been a fan since the moment they hired him, but for Brandon Staley, like, dude, you can't take those timeouts home. Like, it was a master class in Brandon Staley coaching where he tried to give the game away 4 different times and just nobody else wants to win.
Yeah, it helps when you have the Broncos on the other sideline. I mean, that defense is awesome. Like, I think they've given up 6 defensive touchdowns all season, and they're 2-4. And in the first quarter, in the first quarter regarding the Broncos, I mean, like, oh, Russ is all the way back. That offense looks electric. They're flying around. They're making plays. And then first quarter ends, and it just continues to look bad. It got progressively worse. Second quarter, they started stumbling a bit. The second half was awful. I think Wilson was like 4 for 17 in the second half. Just hard to watch. Couldn't get anything going. Latavius Murray's 66 yards leading this. This is against a Chargers team that can't stop the run, by the way.
The worst team in the league stopping opposing running backs if you factor in the pass game. Just atrocious by the Broncos. In the first quarter, right, it's pressure here, pressure there. Russell's making a lot of stuff happen. We go into halftime, and then we decide, let's not move the pocket. Let's make his life as hard as we can. And Russell wasn't doing himself any favors because he looked off a lot of guys that were open in favor of throwing it as far as he can to KJ Hamler or whatever. And sometimes those things worked. But the vast majority in the second half, those didn't work. Spreading the ball around is fine. It's great, honestly, when you have a bunch of guys who can take the targets. The Broncos team preseason, we thought had a lot of talent. It's looking thinner by the day, my friend.
It is, but I mean, Troy Aikman made the point tonight, and he's like, there's too much talent for them to look like this, and whether we overrated that talent on offense or not, it still can't be this bad, can it? I mean, they're proving that it can be, but it's still shocking to me.
Part of the overrating in preseason was everybody being really high on Jerry Jeudy. Like, we're still waiting. We're still waiting on the top 15 draft capital or whatever that he got a couple of years ago. He's first or second receiver off the board after Henry Ruggs. Dude can't catch. Get open as much as you want. You got to catch the ball. You got to make an effort to catch the ball. With the ball in his hands, he looks good. But it's an effort to get him the ball. Courtland Sutton is the target hog in Denver. I thought LA did a good job of taking him away. But it's just they make life as hard as they possibly can on themselves. It's a lot like watching the Bengals, where it's like, okay, we got 2 checkdowns in the middle of the field, but we're going to take 7 seconds off the clock to run somebody as far as we can, and hopefully he's open. And that's just not the way to win NFL football games against a bad Chargers team.
Yeah, I mean, Chargers 5, right? So big picture wise, they didn't look great tonight. They haven't looked great, I think, since that Kansas City game when Herbert got injured, because then they get their doors blown off by the Jags the next week, and they kind of stumble around a little bit. But a big picture wise, Chargers 4-2, and they're tied for the lead in this division since the Chiefs lost to the Bengals or to the Bills. So yeah, we have 11 games left. The Chargers can figure it out. Allen hasn't been there. The defense, I feel like there are always going to be something missing there, because that run defense is just so bad. And it comes to the point, Brandon Staley is the defensive guy, and his defense is the issue here. So besides doing crazy, stupid shit where he decides to go for 4th down on like their own 10, I mean, what's he been adding? We don't know, honestly. But as you look at the Chargers here, this is a big game for them to survive this one, but they didn't play well. Herbert threw the ball 57 times, didn't throw a touchdown. 37 of 57, only 238. Looked discombobulated, but yet they found a way to win, and now they're tied for the division lead. This is a big game, I thought, for them in a measuring stick, because these are games the Chargers have lost in the past.
Well, some things I think that we found out about the Chargers over the last couple of weeks. Mike Williams is a definite wide receiver 2 in the NFL. The Mike Will can be a wideout 1 narrative that started last year when he was killing cornerback 2s has kind of died off pretty hard over the last couple of weeks. Austin Eckler is still the man. I think their offense moves better when Gerald Everett gets the ball. But again, like this is the spot you find yourself in when your number 1 running back is Austin Eckler, and he's a great player. But he's not the guy you want to turn around and give the ball to 20 times a game and then also throw it to him 5, right? And so when this is kind of the way things end up in LA, the offense looks bad. And I think the offense will be alleviated when Keenan Allen comes back, but you cannot be throwing the ball 57 times and win at a sustainable rate in the NFL, because how many times today even did the Broncos just dare them, Justin Herbert, go beat us. Like, with what you have on the field, go beat us. And this was, to me, one of the worst performances he's had in a while. I thought he missed a lot of, I wouldn't say open, but I'd say with the arm talent that Justin Herbert has, there was a lot of completions that he left on the field. And a lot of their offense was buoyed by pass interference in the first half. I think they got 66 yards of pass interference penalties. Like, those are things that let them get to the playoffs, and these things will not work.
Yeah, and the other thing, the offensive line is in shambles again for the Chargers. They're starting 2 rookies who are way over penalty after pay. When you lose your all-pro left tackle, Rashawn Slater, you're going to be in trouble. So now these rookies, they're going to be baptized by fire. They're going to have to figure it out. They're going to have to start being able to play better and at a higher level in this league if the Chargers want to go anywhere. I think it's a possibility for them to do that once they settle in, they get their reps, and then you can kind of figure out what you can do with this line, and it will help when they get their target guy across the middle back with Keenan Allen. And we kind of said before, and you're like, I think the Chargers are bad. I don't know if they're bad necessarily. They're not playing like the team we thought, which we thought was going to be an elite team in this league. Okay, this is the next step for Justin Herbert. This is the next step for this team, getting these guys that we thought were going to fill, like Khalil Mack, and just kind of filled those holes where they had issues, and they haven't played that way. And I think that's kind of distorting our view of them. It's like, oh, they haven't played like we thought they're going to play. So we think they suck now.
Well, realistically, they had a really good shot of losing to the Browns a week ago, and they had a really good shot of losing the game tonight. Obviously, they win both those games. They don't ask how, they just ask how many. So 4-2 is looking good. But if you go back through and you analyze these Chargers games, there's a handful of times in every game where they've just done the wrong thing. And that's what I mean when I say that I think it's a bad Chargers team. Like, this team is probably going to end up going to the playoffs. They'll probably end up making a wild card. And they're going to get shit stomped by somebody in the second round of the playoffs who is just the same thing that we've been thinking about the Chargers for a decade. They are not physical enough to play with these big boys. They just aren't.
Yeah, and they're going to have to figure that out if they want to. I agree with you. They're not built for playoff football. And I think that's the thing about the Chargers, right? They can't stop the run. They can't run the ball.
They're pretty.
Unless you go crazy with Eckler. And again, we love Austin Eckler on the show. He gets injured. When's that going to come? And if that happens, you got Sony Michel and you got Josh Kelly. And that's your running back group. That's going to be tough to win in this league week to week, and especially when you get into the time when you need to be able to run the ball and have balance in the playoffs. And I understand your point a bit too, but they should have beaten the Chiefs, and they look really good against the Chiefs. But it also kind of goes to the point, they did falter, and it was mistakes of their own. That's why they didn't win that game. But I don't know. I'm bullish on the Chargers, think, than you are right now. I think they're better than you think right now. But at the end of the day, they got the job done at home. They're 4-2 and tied for the division lead.
Still counts.
Still counts. I think you're chomping at the bit to get into this one. Things we think. So this is just Tyson and I, as we analyze kind of where we're at through 6 weeks in the NFL. What do we think about different teams? What do we think about different narratives? What do we think is kind of going on in the NFL right now? So Tyson, I'll let you start. What's the number one thing you kind of want to discuss here?
Oh, I mean, I didn't anticipate this before, but the number one thing that I think, Brad, is a year ago or a year and a half ago when Nick Sirianni was introduced at the press conference and he was talking about watering flowers and growing a garden and oh, this guy's an idiot. He can't even coach of the year. Look, Dayball's been awesome. Like Kevin O'Connell's been awesome. They're 6-0. They're they have a pretty easy remaining schedule. The boys in Philly are flying around, and maybe to you at home, it's not impressive that they're 6-0 because they haven't beat anybody, right? But the Vikings are 5-1. But the Cowboys beat the defending Super Bowl champs by a touchdown. They're beating everybody that's on their schedule. Before they played the Jaguars were, oh my God, look at these guys. And then Philly stomped them. And now all of a sudden it's, oh, I guess they're not that good. And we've seen that maybe they aren't that good. You play who's in front of you. And every week Philadelphia has showed up and kicked the shit out of somebody that's in front of them. And you might be looking at their second half differential and saying, well, I don't know about kicking the shit out of people. They're sitting on leads we're a third of the way through the season at this point. Philadelphia has barely had to exert themselves in the second half. This is not some Cinderella story. This is a damn good football team. This is a football team who's imposed their will they have a plus 12 turnover differential right now. Number 2 in the league is the Ravens at plus 4. That's probably not sustainable, but we're 6 weeks in and they're 8 takeaways above everybody else. Something that I think is that the Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in the NFC.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're the best team in the NFC for sure. To your Sirianni point, I mean, if the Eagles go 16-1, 15-2, it's going to be damn hard for them not to win. Because if you look at the history of the award, it mainly goes to the teams. They're the coach of the team who has the best record in the league. So I think, realistically, as we sit right now, it's either going to be Nick Sirianni or it's going to be Sean McDermott. It's going to be one of those two. Eagles have the second easiest schedule in the league. I think they're the best team in the NFC. They're probably going to be favored in every single game except for maybe one with the Cowboys. I think Bills, similarly, if they don't slip up any more games, then maybe lose a couple, depending on what the Eagles do. It's going to be one of those two, in my opinion. I don't think the Giants are going to win enough games for Dayball to win Coach of the Year. It's been a great story, but you can't reward him for that when somebody's only lost one game. Like, it's in the history of the league, it just doesn't happen that way. For me, Tyson, something that I think right now is that only 2 teams can win the Super Bowl this year. And what does that mean? I think the Eagles are awesome. I think they can definitely win the NFC, especially if they get home field advantage. But realistically, I think there's only 2 teams that have separated themselves as truly the best of this bunch that can have that mold, like that can win the Super Bowl, and that's the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. And it pains me to say it. Maybe the Eagles can improve on different things and make me kind of put them in that bracket. But right now, they're just on the outside looking into that group. Bills, they can win in so many different ways. They can be explosive like we saw against the Steelers. They can churn out a game like we saw against the Chiefs. They can do so many different aspects and come from behind and they're winning close games like they haven't. And then with the Chiefs, I mean, you just have Patrick Mahomes on your sideline and you have Andy Reid coaching that group. It's really hard to beat that guy. And the way that those teams are constructed, what I've seen from these other teams through 6 weeks is those are the only 2 right now I can realistically see winning the Super Bowl. No matter who comes out of the NFC, I think they're going to play one of those 2 teams, and the AFC is going to have the winner this year.
Yeah, I mean, if we go straight betting lines, the Eagles could be 17-0, and I think the public's still on the Bills or the Chiefs, and I think that's probably rightfully so. Brad, one of the things I don't think the Packers are going to the playoffs. I think this is kind of turning into a thing where now it went from like, oh, they'll figure it out to like, I don't know what the fuck's going on in Green Bay. They're 3-3. Okay. They have a minus 16 point differential through 6 weeks, and they haven't played hardly anybody throughout this whole stretch. They lose to the Giants in London. Well, maybe the Giants are a good team. Me and you are kind of on the I think the Giants play to the level of competition, and I think that when they play good teams, that ends up being a very good thing for them. But I think that we'll see throughout the year as they play bad teams, maybe it's not ideal. Look, the Packers are pure dysfunction. Okay, the offense is boring. Aaron Rodgers says he wants to simplify the offense. Matt LaFleur said, I don't know what that means. So maybe that's less motion, that less things for these rookies to have to handle. Nobody's walking through that door. They don't have the cap space to go out and get a guy like DJ Moore. Will Fuller said he won't play there because it's too cold. Not that he would be the one to make the difference, anyways. But like that's the cupboards. The cupboards are bare. We thought before the season they were going to split the carries up between the running backs, and that was going to be really effective. AJ Dillon's just a 4-yard to carry guy. That's just who he is. I think through 6 weeks, I'm pretty comfortable saying that. I had a lot of high hopes for AJ Dillon. I think AJ Dillon can get you 4 yards, or he can get you 4 yards. Those are essentially your two options. Packers are dysfunctional. Aaron Rodgers is, and for my money, outside of Kyler Murray, the biggest crybaby in the NFL. And I think that this thing has an opportunity. It's a powder keg in there, Brad, and it might just end up going off.
Yeah, I picked the Vikings to win the NFC North. I didn't think it'd be this crazy what's going on in Green Bay right now. I mean, Aaron Rodgers talking about manifesting reality because got to watch our language.
What a loser, dude! By the way, what a fucking nerd. Grow up.
Like we just gotta watch our language. We gotta watch how we speak about things. Or, pal, you can let it rip to these wide receivers who are open. That'd be a good start too. Yeah, I mean it's bad over in Green Bay, and it feels like for the first time that LaFleur and Rodgers are on the same page here. I think that may be the most alarming thing there, where for all the shit that Rodgers and the front office was going through, it felt like, hey, but I'm very close with, and it feels like that is not the case this year. It feels like they have a rift, and it's not going to get figured out anytime soon, from my point of view. Now, it could also be that RELAX type of thing where we're like, oh god, the Packers just flipped the switch. But what we say before, they don't have the talent like they've always had there in Green Bay this year. So that is an interesting prediction. I love that. Here's one that's not so out there, I guess, for lack of a better term. I think the Panthers are the worst team in the NFL. And it pains me to say it because I should have been holding the Panthers ticket. I just didn't think it was going to go this bad for worst record in the NFL. I'm hoping that maybe they can figure it out a bit and the Bears falter holding that ticket. But here's the thing about the Texans. At least they try hard and compete hard. It feels like the Panthers are just a dead team walking. Like McCaffrey's trying his ass off. That's because he wants out of there. And he wants to live up to that contract. But besides that, man, I mean, the quarterback play stinks. Robbie Anderson just got kicked off the sideline. She's arguing with coaches, immediately gets traded a day later. The defense is banged up again. It's an experiment gone completely wrong there. And I've ripped David Tepper a bit, and I don't want to get into that here. They're in trouble. I mean, they're in big trouble. Now, the good news for them, maybe for me, is that their division's not very good. The Saints aren't very good. I think the Falcons are playing over their head right now, but we'll see if that wears on, if that can continue. And the Bucs seem to be stumbling a bit now, losing 3 in a row, or I think it's 3 in a row. Yeah, they're sitting at 3-3. So Panthers can potentially rattle off some wins, but where it stands right now, I think they're the worst team in the league.
And I'm going to play off that a bit. I think the Buccaneers are blessed. I think they're blessed to be in the NFC South right now. Because if we run through every division, I don't think the Bucs make it out of the NFC West. Like, I think those teams are about the same as the Buccaneers when you talk about the Niners and the Rams. The NFC East, obviously, 6-0, 5-1, 4-2. The NFC North, we just talked about it, the Vikings at 5-1. The Buccaneers are playing some of the worst football, or the worst football of the Tom Brady era there. And they're sitting there tied at the top of the division. Nobody in the world, besides people who bet the Falcons to cover the spread, are believing in the Atlanta Falcons to win the NFC South. The Panthers suck. The Saints are 2-4 and look like they have a billion question marks. The Buccaneers are going to probably end up winning this division, but they are just, we thought preseason, and you said it a handful of times on the show, they have the number 1 defense in football. Doesn't look like it.
Nope.
It just doesn't look like it. And it's awesome to watch Tom Brady get fired up and scream at the offensive line and all that stuff. You were at fucking Robert Kraft's wedding this weekend, dude. Go through walkthroughs. You missed 11 days of this. You got all this other stuff going on. We understand you're the GOAT and you have life things going on. So does everybody else in the locker room, dude. And I'm sick of the national media narrative. Oh, Tom can do no wrong. Tom's been bad. Okay. Todd Bowles has been Todd Bowles. Mike Evans got 4 targets this week against a depleted secondary. That can't happen. There's a lot of things going on right now in Tampa Bay that they probably or they should be able to figure out. But we're 6 weeks into this thing, and there's no identity in Tampa Bay.
That's the scariest thing. There is no identity. They don't know if they want to be running the football with Fournette. They don't know if they want to just spread it out and let Brady rip it and throw it. And you would think at a time when they can take advantage of a secondary and really get that passing offense going. They can't. In the
4
Steelers game,
targets
they
from
lose.
Mike Evans.
They lost to Kenny Pickett and they got a concussion, and then Mitchell Trubisky came in and converted like 17 third downs in a row
And
for them
shredded
not
them.
to get the ball back.
Shredded
It was,
them.
yeah. Bucks definitely overrated at this point in time. It's an everything thing. Like Brady's been bad. The defense started off the year very well. They've come back to earth a lot. Like I always said,
The
best
give
in the
a shit
league.
factor feels like it's gone in Tampa Bay.
It feels like there's no life there. Like
They're not
everybody's just
having
going through the modes. Like it's almost like they're just waiting until they kind of get to a point in the season where they're like, okay, finally we can start trying a bit now and let's get geared up for the playoffs. But because they're like, nope, there's no life on that sideline. Bad play happens, they just walk off. Good play happens, they just walk off. Like there's no care in the world right there in Tampa Bay. That's scary if you're going to rely on a flip or a switch to be flipped. That's a scary thing in this league when the parity has never been closer. I think, God, I hate to say it, but it's time to respect New York. And I'm not talking just about the Giants. I'm talking about the Jets too. And we talk about a 5-1 Giants team. We're talking about a Jets team who's 4-2 now, 3-0 away from home. Like Jets just beat the Packers. Jets have looked very good, and certain aspects of the different games. I mean, the defense, starting to play a lot better under Robert Saleh. For the Giants, man, there's just something going on there with Brian Daboll. It feels like they actually believe in themselves. They believe in the team. Daniel Jones is limiting his mistakes. Saquon Barkley looks absolutely electric again. And they are winning games, the Giants are, that are like improbable, like literally like impossible. If you look at win total or win share or win percentage in the fourth quarter, like you're dead. Like you're dead on the mat. And the Undertaker fucking 3 weeks in a row that they just get up, and then they just win these football games. So like, how is this happening? Well, something's happening there, and something's happening up in New York, and for the Jets, where these teams, they're starting to believe in themselves. And these are teams for the past decade have had no belief. Anything that can go wrong can and will. All of a sudden, it's reversing itself a bit. The Jets are the one blocking the punts now. The Jets are the one who have fortunate turnovers go their way. Now the Giants, all of a sudden, they are the ones forcing mistakes and taking advantage of it. You are what your record says you are. Through 6 weeks, it is time to respect the New York teams.
And you know who else is time to respect, Brad? And this feels weird, but this is a conversation I wanted to have. Tyreek Hill's on pace to break Calvin Johnson's single-season reception yards record. Tyreek Hill's been doing it with a combination of Tua, Teddy Bridgewater, and Skylar Thompson. I think that it might be time to talk about Tyreek Hill as the best receiver in the NFL. When we was in Kansas City, we thought that it might have been a Patrick Mahomes thing. Turns out it's the fact that this dude is the freakiest athlete to ever put on a pair of pads. Like he goes from 0 to 60 faster than anybody that's ever played the sport. He's killing people. He's doing whatever he wants to pretty much everybody. He's a target hog. That doesn't matter who his quarterback is, who else he's on the field with. And you can say, oh, he's in Miami now. Jalen Waddle's the number 7 receiver, I think, right now in yards per game or something like that. Tyreek Hill is murdering everybody. And Tyreek Hill is consistently, it's Cooper, and then it's Devontae, and then, it's probably Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and then Tyreek kind of is always the 5th guy that you put in there. All he's done is show up. There's I think now there's 5 games in Miami Dolphin history where a player has had 150 yards and 10 catches. Tyreek has 3 through his first 6 games in a uniform. Different.
That is impressive.
That
is impressive. Well, you know who's not been impressive, Tyson? I think Kyler Murray is the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. I've been saying this for a long time, and I know you.
2-47 on double XP weeks on Call of Duty.
No, that's a fake stat.
I'm just kidding.
But it's actually hilarious because it's probably true at some point. I get it, man. And that's what all these Kyler Murray guys say. Well, he's just so talented. He just does this and that. And Cliff's the idiot. Well, look at his stats. 23 to 37, 222 yards and a pick. That's really, you're going to be like, whoa, look at his stats. He was good. It's like, that's not a stat line that I'm bragging about here. And Here's a crazy idea. Watch the game. This is a Seahawks defense that gave up 40 points and 38 points in back-to-back weeks.
He scored
The
9.
Cardinals scored 9 points. They didn't have an offensive touchdown in this game. And that can't all be Cliff Kingsbury. And believe me, I think Cliff's in way over his head. I think he's probably going to be fired at the end of this year, maybe even during the season. He's not an NFL guy. That is not all Cliff Kingsbury. That's a quarterback who's entitled, thinks he knows everything, runs around, doesn't listen to anybody, and then blames other people when he can't make a play. That's what Kyler Murray is. And if that is harsh, that's the reality of it. And it's not me saying that. This is people who have evaluated him. These are people in the NFL who talk to people in that locker room, and they're going to say the same old song and dance. Oh, Kyler Murray's a good teammate. I'm just telling you what I watched. Body language is awful. Dude is not a leader, and now he can't back anything up with his play through 6 weeks. I think he's the most overrated quarterback in the National Football League.
Yeah, I'm pretty close behind you there. I've never been a Kyler guy. I've always kind of been confused at the love that he gets. I will say when he takes off scrambling, I don't think there's a guy in the NFL that moves like he does when he's in the open field. Problem is that, Rondale Moore is stepping into a new role here, and his average depth of target's like a yard. Okay, so this is a guy that's supposed to be able to sling it all over the field. Haven't seen it. One more thing that I think, Brad, is I think the Cleveland Browns are in big trouble. Huge. They have the second easiest schedule to this point in the season. Treaded water. Got embarrassed by Bill Belichick and Bailey Zappi, my boy, this weekend. Don't give that job back, Bailey. He doesn't deserve it. Now they have, I think it's on paper, the toughest schedule going forward. We have a new allegation coming out on Deshaun Watson. Probably doesn't affect anything, but I'm sure it's a little noisy in the Cleveland Browns locker room. This feels a lot to me like the last couple Cleveland Browns team, where if Nick Chubb gets you 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, you got a great shot at winning the football game. When he doesn't give you 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, you are fucked. It's beyond belief. What they have going on over there in Cleveland is the same thing they've had going on for 3 years, where we look at this roster and we go, oh my God, they're stacked. And then they'll run off a couple wins early in the season before everybody's got film. And then all of a sudden, people get the film on them, and offensive genius Kevin Stefanski's offense is boring. And his offense doesn't look great, and the route concepts suck, and the way their passing plays are vanilla, and they have to run certain zone concepts to even get these guys to be able to run behind the best offensive line in the league. It's the same shit, different year. I don't think that Deshaun Watson coming back after a 2-year hiatus in week 13 on is going to be the thing that pushed this team over the top. I think that the Browns did well to find themselves in the position that we're in, but I think over the last 2 weeks, we've seen who the Cleveland Browns really are, and the answer is they're the Cleveland Browns.
Last thing for me here, very well said there. I can't even add to that. Perfect. And this is more so, do I think this, question mark? Because I'm starting to think, are the Ravens a gimmick? Like, dude, the Lamar thing was awesome through the first couple weeks, and I know you love him. That he can't throw the ball. And people are starting to figure this guy out. And I get it, man. It's against his old defensive coordinator, Wink, who should know about everything he can do.
Right, but he's also the biggest gambler at the entire defensive coordinator thing. Like, there's a plenty of opportunities to take advantage if you're Lamar Jackson.
17 to 32, 210, and 1 touchdown.
And
he 2 fumbles, right? Was that 2 fumbles?
Timely interception.
Yeah.
Another one.
Yeah, the pick. Yeah. It was not impressive by Lamar Jackson. The defense continues to have questions. John Harbaugh, another blown lead late. And I like John Harbaugh, and I like Lamar Jackson. I don't love him the way you do. I respect his talent, but I've always said there's just something missing to go to that next level with Lamar. And I think when he peaked and had that MVP season, we just looked at it like, well, he's just only going to continue to get better from there. Well, what if that's just not the case? What if that's the best he was going to be? And that was like the shooting star. Everything lined up perfectly for Lamar and the Ravens that season. And that's the best that they would ever be under Lamar Jackson. Now, I don't know if that's the case. It's just I'm just starting to think, hey, is that actually a possibility? Is this whole thing just a gimmick now with this offense that you can pick and choose when to attack it, because you know they're limited, and you got linebackers who run just as fast as the quarterback sideline to sideline. Like, I don't know. It's making me think. I don't know if I believe it, but I'm starting to think it.
Look, man, one's unfortunate, two's a coincidence, three's a trend. They've done this now. All three of their losses have been pissing the game away at the end of the game. Bateman's not playing. He hasn't been playing the last couple of weeks. I think that's huge because their receiving core obviously is bad. Something's going on with J.K. Dobbins. Like, his health clearly just still isn't there. His patella tendon or whatever, what did they say, locked up on him or something, so he wasn't able to go back in the game. But it's the lack of weapons notwithstanding, there is something going on in Baltimore where they just can't close football games. And that was their
best
MO.
at it.
That was their we're going to get you into deep water, and we're going to make a 60-yard field goal, and we're going to beat you. By the way, Justin Tucker missed. So something's really going on in Baltimore.
All right. You had one more? Or was Browns your last one?
I think that's good. I think that's all the things that I think besides the fact that Nathaniel Hackett is an idiot and Josh McDaniels is going to lose his job. But those are well-documented things, I think.
Yeah, and if you don't know, Tyson hates coaches, and he loves to see them lose their jobs. He loves when their family gets something. No, I'm kidding. Look, it's just, this is a $1 billion business, right? Like, and we've tweaked that before, man. There's 32 of these jobs. If you can't do it, somebody else is waiting to do it. Like,
or Steve Wilkes will take your job and he'll lose games. He'll do it better than you did.
Yeah, exactly. So they can get a franchise QB, which some of these teams desperately need from what we've seen this year. Bad news. We kind of buried the lead on this one. Last two props, 0-2. That's fine for us. I mean, we said it was coming. Water's going to hit its level at some point, but it's gambling. We are still up on the year.
I mean,
hockey started. Tyson, I'm 8-0 in hockey. College football was a roller coaster. I lost my voice because Penn State got pounded. Other than that, though, it's been pretty good. Oh, NBA. So we're going to have a ton of stuff. So that's why you got to get into our chalkboard. Like, we've been saying it.
The UFC 280 card is on Saturday. It's in Abu Dhabi. So for me, I think that's 12 p.m. So for you, I think it's 10 a.m. on the East Coast. We'll have picks in there. I'll do my best to get them in on Friday night. But this is the first real big UFC card that we've had since we've been doing the chalkboard. And that has been a fucking wagon for the kids over the last year. So we're going to try to get some money in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure it links in the bio. By the way, comment what you all think about kind of what you think, what we think, whether if you want to comment on our thoughts, if you have your own thoughts you want to share with us, make sure to comment, whether it's in Spotify, Apple, or if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to send us a comment down there. We'll make sure to answer those questions for you that you have or interact with you in our comment section. So in the meantime, follow us on our social medias. Instagram and TikTok is @_the_roundtable_pod_, and our Twitter is @TRT_pod. We appreciate you guys listening as always. We appreciate you guys subscribing, and sharing. College football episode coming up next. That'll be out Wednesday. So until then, guys, peace.